There was some drama over the streamer Emiru refusing to make a definite statement on ice, and the Archcast made a video response pointing out how the left doesn't let you remain neutral. Arch sort of missed the mark on this video though.
Neutrality is indeed a political position, and it is rather unique in that it relies upon the forbearance and the grace of more active political positions for its continued existence. Now, before you reach for your keyboard, because I'm sure that is a statement that has antagonized a fair few of you, I will of course expand, and yes, I am talking about Emiru's refusal to comment on ice.
Context. A viewer asked Emiru her opinion about ice, and this was her response.
It's on ice. Like, there's a certain extent where I'm like, okay, sure, I get people wanting big content creators say their opinions on important topics, but it's like, if you need a streamer who doesn't even know anything about politics to tell you about politics, you probably just need to get off the internet. Like, hello?
This is pretty much all she said. Then someone posted this clip, creating one of the biggest hate mobs I've ever seen on Twitter.
And they're going crazy.
It's because of people like this that neutrality is a political position. Denims moved out rather quickly and declared Emiru for being a racist chud for not wishing to speak on ice. The logic from a left-wing perspective here is of course clear. If you are not with me, you must, by definition, be against me. And therefore, you are a racist chud, obviously.
In less important issues, neutrality is fine, but when it comes to really important shit like Epstein and his network, there is no such thing as neutrality. There's basically two sides in issues like this. Either you are against pedophilia, pro-pedophilia, or somebody who isn't against it is basically for it. Or perhaps the third option would be to be simply ignorant, but that still benefits the pedos.
Because everyone who is against me is a Nazi. This is the sort of political position found on the broader left, which...
I'm sort of tired of these videos of people pointing out how the left is bad / hypocritical or whatever. While it's true, but it's just repeating the same low-hanging fruit shit and doesn't really contribute anything anymore. I think it's more relevant to start asking why are they like this and what can be done about it. My 2 cents is that the left is subverted and delusional. The left used to be against big corporations and for the working man, but now, if you don't like a product of a multinational corporation or don't want immigrants to take the jobs, tax money of the working class, you're racist. The whole ideology of the left is now ultimately Nazi equals bad. Whatever has Nazi-like features is bad, and Nazi is defined by a superficial understanding of the Nazis derived from Hollywood. Nazis preferred their own kind instead of ethnic outsiders, so you have to believe the opposite to be a virtuous leftist. Nazis didn't like porn and degeneracy, so those things are liberating. Nazis used force to solve their problems, so violence is bad, except against Nazis.
Quite simply put, these people believe that they are good, universally, and that their politics are merely just common sense. Even more so, they are virtuous, virtue incarnate in fact, and therefore if you do not share their opinions, you are evil. You are not simply stupid or ill-informed or anything like that.
Like I said, they are delusional. Why? Is it because those people are inherently prone to it, or have they been manipulated into it by subversive brainwashing? It's probably a bit of both. And what can be done about the left? Do we just treat them as zombies, or can they be saved? Can they be convinced out of their delusional positions?
So, the reason why neutrality was viewed as a non-political position that could simply exist. You could choose to just go like, oh, no, politics, not for me, can't be bothered, I don't care, was because it was protected, largely by the right, by the conservative side, my side of politics.
One reason I don't identify as left, right, or center is that the whole D-pad of politics attracts grifters. And this guy's an anti-left centrist, not really a right-winger.
We had, in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, created a society where simply going, I don't care, I'm gonna watch Batman, was not only acceptable, it was desirable. That was what we all wanted, and frankly, it's where I would like to return to as well.
I was like that too, since I was a teenager around that time. Then I grew up. On the surface, wanting to live in the 90s or the year 2000 is fine. It was a better time to live, for the most part. Let's fast forward just a little bit and we hit year 2000 and 9/11. Part of the problem is that people just wanted to watch Batman. The malicious actors work in the shadows whether or not you're aware of it. Epstein and his network were doing their schemes already. It was simply harder to find out about it or just easier to ignore it. There's a saying, you can ignore reality, but you can't ignore the consequences of ignoring reality. 9/11 happened, whether you blame it on the Muslims, Mossad or Bush or the Tooth Fairy. It happened. And if we go back in time, it's gonna happen again, or something similar at least. 9/11 wasn't an isolated incident. It put many things into motion, such as various wars that ensued, the Patriot Act. It gave rise to mass immigration into the Western world and Islamization of Europe, and so forth. So this pining for the past, I share some of the sentiment, but it's very counterproductive.
I would love nothing more than to go back then and freeze time in the year 2000s, where politics was something that old, boring, dusty men in halls of power, far distant from me or my life, they were the ones who cared about that, and I didn't have to.
Those boring old men caused 9/11, wars, created a woke SJW movement, mass immigration, political correctness, COVID tyranny, etc.
My politics were whether or not the next video game release is going to be even more amazing than the previous one.
Yeah, because you were a kid back in those times. I don't know how old Arch exactly is, but I think he's around my age and I'm in my 40s.
Neutrality is now solely defended by the right, by the conservative position, or whatever you wish to call it, centrism or whatever, the non-left-wing side.
That's one reason why they are part of the problem. There's no neutrality in truly important issues, such as whether you're gonna give your kids to pederast politicians as playthings. If we learned anything from the Epstein files, it should be the lesson that the left and right paradigm's utmost purpose is to distract us. Certainly the left tends to be more distracted, but not on every issue.
That is what transformed that entertainment, and then brought people like me into the fray. In fact, the majority of the current counterculture movement on the right that moved up against this in academia in general were simply people who didn't want to be political, who were simply gamers, or people who enjoyed movies, etc. The majority of the large-scale influences on the right now come from that background, just as much, if not more so, than a political or activist background.
And I understand the sentiment. I used to be like that too. Unfortunately, that's not how reality works. Let's put it this way. Let's say your neighbor is Sauron, who is planning world domination. Ignoring him might give you a bit of time to play video games in peace, but eventually it's gonna bite you in the ass. So maybe you should just, find that ring and dunk it into the freaking volcano.
We were fighting against a foe that believed us to be evil, that on a moral level required our extinction.
Yes, but the final boss is not zombified leftists, but the cannibalistic pedos in politics, finance, media, etc.
Is that the area of neutrality has grown narrower and narrower and narrower and narrower, until today where it has all but in essence completely disappeared. Choosing to be neutral today is, again, as I said, frankly, an act of moral cowardice, more so than it is a virtue, because you are under siege.
No argument there, except it's not just left versus right. Many right-wingers have ran defense for the cannibal pedos by downplaying the Epstein files or the guy's connection to a certain Middle Eastern country and the religious ethnicity associated with it. So pinning it simply on the left isn't gonna cut it.
Should be able to stand up and at least have an anti-left-wing position at this point, if for no other reason than to declare, no, I wish to be apolitical. And for me to do that, I must denounce the people who refuse to give me that privilege.
One should not be apolitical when it comes to cannibalistic pedo-vampires that run the world. I wish that wouldn't be the state of affairs, but the state of affairs is what it is, so we have to act accordingly.
All we had to care about was whether or not the next piece of entertainment, again, would be even better than the preceding one. And indeed, the very idea of politics infiltrating our entertainment was a rarity. It was usually some kind of auteur film with a very specific goal in mind, or a game that was considered charming.
This juxtaposition is nonsense. Talking about politics without addressing the elephant in the living room is tantamount to deception. Arch's main concern seems to be that games and movies suck today, which is mostly true, yet hardly the issue.
Before Elon Musk purchased Twitter, the entirety of the online media space was in essence an echo chamber, and large parts of it still is today. It was more than common to be banned off Twitter for having milquetoast conservative opinions, not to mention on YouTube.
Perhaps you can say that Twitter or X improved slightly since the times of Dorsey, but marginally. Censorship and bans are still quite common on the platform.
And that is the position that Emiru is in right now. This is a please don't cancel me plea. This is a I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to chase off any portion of my community. I simply want to be a content creator online. But that position as well can only exist until the opposition decides that it is your time to become the target.
Emiru being neutral on this issue is reasonable in a sane society, as presumably her streams are focused on gaming and entertainment instead of politics. However, if the majority of her audience consists of crazy leftists, and that's the audience she's cultivated, you can criticize her for not giving the audience what they want, which is crazy leftism.
At this point, neutrality is the right-wing position. And that's pretty much all I have to say on that subject.
If neutrality is a right-wing position nowadays, then the right wing is hardly better than the left. See the cannibalistic Baal-worshipping pedos in charge. Of course, neither Emiru nor Arch mentioned those people in this video. Emiru was refusing to have an opinion over ICE, so why do I bring up this topic? Because the conflict relating to ICE, both the influx of illegal immigrants and the left versus right dispute over ICE has been created by Epstein's clients. If you want to fix this, get rid of the source of the trouble. Also, there is an argument to be made that even the simple issue of ICE is significant enough, especially if you're American, that one should not be ignorant of it either. Another YouTube video I saw the other day mentioned that the United States is no longer a country that cares about laws, since illegal immigrants are allowed to come to the country but cannot be deported. That's a decent argument. However, one could also argue, and I have, that the killing of Renee Good and Alex Pretty were unlawful acts too. And certainly laws have not been enforced when it comes to the pedophile vampire class in charge, as no one has been arrested or staked. ICE is good if they do actually deport the illegals, naturally. However, killing unarmed civilians is rather counterproductive, to say the least. So far, it seems that Obama has had higher deportation numbers than Trump, so it's questionable whether they are actually trying to fix the problem instead of half-assing it for PR purposes. There's a good chance that one day they will be deporting American citizens who don't love America's greatest ally strongly enough. Ignoring the cannibalistic pedo-vampire class at this point, if discussing politics, which Arch's video was, almost refutes whatever argument was being made. It's like if a skyscraper is on fire and you act like pissing on it will help putting it out. Certainly the left tends to ignore this fact too, unless they can use it to criticize the orange man or the white man. But we are beyond the point of acting smug when pointing out how the left is bad. Well, duh. Focus should be on how to bring the pedo class to justice. If the left can help, that's great, or same applies to the mainstream right wing for that matter. If they prefer to be consumed by political sports ball, let them eat each other. My hypocrisy argument or neutrality aren't really helping.